Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. In that towering tower in the financial district, Daniel is always the last one to leave the office. As he habitually organized the papers on his desk, the look of the suit is reflected in the floor-to-ceiling windows, a perfect silhouette of an elite. As an executive in the company's finance department, he's always maintained an almost obsessive control. It's as if the weight of maintaining all balance is carried on his shoulders. Midnight in the office. His computer screen remained bright. As a perfectionist, he double-checked every number in his quarterly statement. This meticulous character has enabled him to achieve success in the workplace, but it also caused him to miss out on too many heartwarming family moments. He has a family photo on his desk that was taken last Christmas. In the photo, Clara tenderly cradled both of her children in her arms, and he stood aside. There was a detachment, if any, in the smile. At nightfall, he drove to the cozy villa on the outskirts. The street scene flew by outside the car window, but his thoughts were stuck on today's budget meeting. On the drive, he got 3 calls from work that each pass caused his frown to deepen until you turn into your own driveway. Seeing the warm light in the living room, it took him a moment to realize that he was already late for the appointed dinner hour. This is the 4th time this month I've missed a family dinner. The moment he pushed open the door, the aroma of pasta is overwhelming. Clara was standing in the kitchen. The apron was stained with traces of sauce. Was looking down and fiddling with the decorations on his dinner plate. She looked up at Daniel. A familiar smile appeared on his face. It was a gentle and tolerant look. On the wall behind her, hanging one of her recently completed paintings. The colors are so bright they almost spill out of the frame. She's been working on this painting on and off for 3 months. Then the youthful enthusiasm of staying up late at every turn to finish a piece of art. Nowadays, she can never seem to find the passion to create. Daddy's home. 8-year-old Lucas was the first to rush over. A math test was still clutched in his hand. "Look, I got a perfect score today." Daniel rubbed his son's hair, nodding in relief. Lucas has perfectly inherited his father's strict character. Always impresses his teachers in school with his excellent grades. 5-year-old Helena was sitting on the living room carpet. There were crayons and drawing paper of various colors scattered around, totally immersed in her art world. Little girl painting crooked rainbows, but obsessively traced over and over again. This focus reminds Clara of herself when she was younger. It's a perfect picture of the family, as harmonious as the scenes in Clara's paintings. But if you look closely, it will be possible to spot the subtle cracks hidden underneath the picture. Daniel's suit and tie are still in perfect order, but it made him seem out of place in this cozy environment. Clara's smile is still sweet, but there was a hint of undetectable exhaustion hiding under his eyes. She was once the brightest new star in the gallery. The paintings are full of life and passion, but now the work always seems quiet and restrained, just like her repressed heart. At dinner, Lucas is excited about the fun things that happen at school. Helena, on the other hand, painted the spaghetti sauce in the shape of little flowers. Daniel nods his head in response, occasionally. More often than not, I'm checking my email on my phone. Clara listened quietly to the children, with an occasional glance at her husband, but never spoke. Conversation at the dinner table became less and less. Occasional conversations were limited to the minutiae of life. Clara remembers when they first got married, often talking late into the night. Share each other's dreams and expectations for the future. 10 years of married life is like a gentle river. It's calm on the surface, but it's not, but gradually changing direction in the undercurrent. Once, they are young people who met at an art show. Clara was an aspiring art student. The world is always colorful under a paintbrush. Her mentor had predicted that she would become a heck of an artist, but life took her down a different path. Daniel just got a promotion, full of plans for the future. He was attracted to the life force that jumped out of her paintings, and she fell in love with the firmness and reliability in his eyes. They were always inseparable back then. Daniel would sit in the gallery all day long, just to watch Clara paint. He liked the way she frowned slightly when she was serious. Love her big smile when she finishes her work too. Clara, on the other hand, would visit his office with a late-night snack while he was working late. The two of them huddled together at the tiny desk of the, enjoying a romantic time of their own. But now, all of these memories seem to be fuzzy and distant. But as time passes, the burdens of life gradually blurred the initial stirrings. Daniel was getting busy. Put most of your energy into your work. He believes that working hard is the best thing you can do for your family. Whenever Clara tried to talk to him, he always excuses it as work. And Clara, after having the baby, to put their artistic dreams on the back burner. Focus on taking care of your family. She still paints, but at a decreasing frequency. The colors of the paintings are not as bright as they once were. Her drawing room was gradually taken over by toys and parenting books. The once loved smell of paint has been replaced by the aroma of powdered milk. On the nightstand in the bedroom, there were their wedding photos on display. The two in the photo are young and enthusiastic. It's as if you want to take all the beauty of the world into your arms. Now they're like two parallel lines, maintaining a polite and detached warmth. Clara no longer shares her artistic inspirations with Daniel. Daniel rarely asks about her dreams either. Their conversations centered around the wood, the rice, and the salt. Children's education, mortgage repayment. Sometimes Clara wakes up late at night, looking at her sleeping husband, thinking of the vows they once made at sea. A pang of acidity flooded his heart. That night, Clara was organizing her painting supplies in her study, found a sketch from a long time ago. It was her first portrait of Daniel. The lines are green but full of emotion. She remembered that day vividly. The springtime sunlight was spilling over the side of Daniel's face. The way he was reading the papers carefully made her heart skip a beat. She spent the entire afternoon, wanted to capture that moment on paper forever. She stroked the paper gently. Think back to the heartbeat and longing of that time. The sound of the TV news coming from the living room. Daniel's on the couch working on paperwork. Every now and then he frowned at his cell phone. She wants to go over there, snuggle up to him like you used to, but hesitated at the door. Recently, the company is hosting its annual dinner. It's the most important social occasion of the year. In previous years, Clara has accompanied the attendees. This year, Daniel has made a habit of inviting her, too, but with less anticipation in his voice. More like routine. Clara agreed. But for the first time, I was in a funk about my closet. All those beautiful gowns still fit, yet she felt like she had long since ceased to be the radiant woman she had been. She started trying to remember the last time she danced with Daniel, only to find that even such simple memories have become blurred. In the dead of night, Clara often sits alone in the studio. The moonlight pours through the window onto the canvas, and she couldn't bring herself to paint. The empty drawing room, only the brushes and paints watched her silently. She began to wonder, are all marriages like this? Fading colors in the wash of time. The security Daniel gave her was still there, but it's like a pane of glass. Can't touch each other's heartbeats. She remembered the dreams of her youth, those visions of art and expectations of love. Now it's all gone dull. The twist happened on an ordinary Sunday afternoon. Clara was organizing her photo albums. Found an old ticket stub. It's a ticket to the art show they went to on their first date. Daniel saved it on purpose. He used to write on the back of ticket stubs, "Meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me." The discovery made her nose twitch, and I'm touched by the husband's care. And again, I am saddened by the present detachment. She wanted to find Daniel to share this discovery, and I saw him on the phone, talking about new project plans. She silently put the ticket stub back in its place, and those sweet memories seemed to have followed the dust. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, Clara looked at the outline of the city in the distance. The setting sun is coloring the sky in orange-red, like those hopeful twilights she once painted. She suddenly realized that the emptiness within himself was growing. The feeling wasn't one of resentment toward Daniel. Rather, they have lost their expectations of life. She began to miss her late-night studio self. I miss the excitement over a splash of color. Unfinished paintings piled up in the corner of the studio. Those are proof that she's trying to get back into painting. Unfortunately, every attempt ended in failure. As the date of the annual dinner draws nearer, Clara started trying on clothes. The woman in the mirror is elegant and decent, but it was as if he was wearing an elaborate mask. She knew she would continue to play the role of the perfect wife, to respond to every greeting with a decent smile. But deep down, there was a voice stirring uneasily. She was expecting something, and afraid of something. Maybe it's the desire for change, or maybe it's fear of the unknown. That night, Daniel came home unprecedentedly early. He brought a bunch of roses, apologized for missing their wedding anniversary. When Clara took the flowers, a hint of familiar warmth was felt. The scent of roses reminded her of their wedding. That she was holding the same rose then. There was a glint in his eyes of infinite longing for the future. But when she tried to talk to him about her inner confusion, Daniel's cell phone rings again. He gave her an apologetic look, walked into the den to answer the phone. Clara looked at the roses in the vase. The trance thinks their brilliant red color isn't as bright as it once was. She touched the petals gently and, feeling the temperature of that which is about to fade, like the relationship between her and Daniel, beautiful but fragile. The roses in the vase swayed slightly in the morning light. Clara was sitting at her dresser. Gaze at yourself in the mirror. The annual dinner is tonight. It had been a long time since she had dressed so seriously. The woman in the mirror had tired eyes and yet it remains elegant. She took out the dark blue gown that. It was Daniel's birthday present to her last year. It's just a shame I never had the right opportunity to wear it. Daniel went out early in the morning. Said he was making final preparations for the evening's dinner. Before leaving, he left a rare light kiss on her forehead and promised to pick her up in the evening on time. This subtle act of tenderness sent a ripple through Clara's heart, and, yet again, it quickly subsided. She remembered the bouquet of roses last night thinking about that moment of conversation that was interrupted by a work call. A pang of bitterness roiled in his heart. Helena is lying in the doorway, curious to watch my mom put on her makeup. Mommy is so beautiful. The little girl's eyes glittered with adoration and, like a princess in a fairy tale. Clara laughed as she held her daughter in her lap and, gently brushing her hair, she looked at the reflection of mother and daughter in the mirror and, suddenly I realized I hadn't dressed up this seriously in a long time. After marriage, she's used to being vegan. Get used to hiding yourself under the shelter of your home clothes. The neighbor's wife promised to come and watch the children in the evening. Before leaving, Clara double-checked both kids' homework and what they would need for tomorrow. Lucas already knows how to take care of his sister. It was both comforting and heartbreaking to her. At nightfall, Daniel showed up at the door right on time. He's got a new suit, looks handsome and competent. When he saw Clara, there was a flash of amazement in his eyes but soon the usual expression returned. As the car drove toward the center of town, both were silent. Clara looked out the window at the flowing neon. Thoughts drifted to the distant past. She remembers the nerves and anticipation of her first company dinner. Daniel back then would hold her hand the whole time, fearful that she would be uncomfortable in an unfamiliar environment. Now they're like two strangers who don't know each other, each immersed in his own world. The ballroom is glorious. Crystal chandeliers illuminate every corner. Clara took Daniel's arm. Follow him through the crowd. She smiled gracefully and, responding appropriately to every greeting. It's like a perfect supporting role. Daniel gets pulled into conversations with coworkers from time to time, and she stood by and, listening to all the business talk that she could never fit in. Would you like a glass of champagne? A gentle male voice sounded behind her. Clara turned around, seeing a strange, friendly face. It was a tall man, in a well-tailored suit. There was a special kind of concentration in his eyes. I'm the new marketing manager, James Wilson. He introduced himself. There was a comforting magnetism in his voice. Clara takes the champagne. A polite thank you. She noticed that James' eyes kept falling on her. Unlike other coworkers, always eager to climb into conversation with Daniel. I've seen your paintings in the office. He snapped. The sunflower. The use of color is bold. Clara looked at him with surprise and she remembers that the painting was given to Daniel last year for his office decorations. I didn't think anyone would notice the author. You know about art? She couldn't help but ask. James laughed. Fine lines emerged from the corners of his eyes. My sister is a gallery operator, growing up with an ear to the ground. There was a genuine warmth in his tone that I can feel a special life force in your paintings, though also with a hint of hidden sadness. The words touched the deepest chords of Clara's heart. How long has it been? No one talks about her art this seriously? Even Daniel. It's also long since stopped asking about her creative work. She found herself talking to James without realizing it. From art genres to life lessons. Every one of his responses was just right, showing both professional insights, without being stressful. Daniel is being pestered by corporate executives. Was discussing something heatedly in the distance. Clara noticed him looking this way, occasionally, but was quickly pulled back into the conversation. James seemed to notice her wandering off, thoughtfully suggesting a trip to the patio to get some air. The night air is slightly cooler. The city lights in the distance are like scattered stars. You haven't painted in a long time, have you? James is leaning against the railing, eyes deep. Clara froze for a moment. I don't know how he saw it. The look in your eyes. He continued, always twinkling at the sight of art-related topics, but then quickly extinguished. It's like repressing something. Clara felt her heart flutter slightly. This man I just met. How is it that you can so accurately tell what's on her mind? She looked down at the champagne in her hand and golden bubbles slowly rising and bursting. It was like the emotions churning inside her. Life, she whispered. It always changes one's trajectory, but it shouldn't change the nature of a person. James' voice was soft and firm. You know what? When I first saw your painting, just feel that suppressed passion. That shouldn't be rubbed out by life. His fingers gently touched her hand on the railing. The touch sent a jolt through Clara's body but it didn't draw away. The night wind brings the sound of distant music. The sounds of the gaggle were softened into a blurred background. Clara felt a heartbeat she hadn't felt in a long time. It's both anticipated and feared. James is leaning in closer. The faint scent of his cologne mixed with the night air. It creates a mesmerizing scent. Maybe, he whispered, life needs some changes. Just then, a loud voice broke the ambiguous atmosphere. Clara? Daniel was standing at the patio door. The expression on his face was both confused and somber. Clara is waking up from a dream, hastily taking a step back, only to trip over her heels. James subconsciously held onto her arm and the gesture, however, became piercing in Daniel's eyes. Time seemed to freeze in this moment. Daniel takes it in stride. Every step he took felt like he was stepping on Clara's heart. He didn't look at James. Instead, staring straight into Clara's eyes, the disappointment and anger in that gaze overwhelmed her. We should go. His voice was cold and unfamiliar. Leaving. James is trying to say something, but was stopped by Daniel's icy stare. Clara followed her husband through the ballroom, feeling the curious glances cast around them. Her cheeks burned with, both out of shame, and also because of that thought that still beats inside. She knows. After this night, everything will be different. In the car on the way back, the silence was even more stifling than when it came. Daniel's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. The knuckles are white. Clara looked out the window at the street scene that was whizzing by. The heart is full of contradictions. She was both ashamed of her behavior and yet there was no denying the feeling of being understood when talking to James. That's something she's gradually lost in her marriage, easily awakened by a stranger. They returned home in silence. The neighbor's wife sensed something was wrong. Leave with a hasty goodbye. The kids are asleep. The house was awfully quiet. Clara was standing in the center of the living room, watching Daniel's back. Wanted to say something, but I don't know where to start. In the end, it was Daniel who broke the silence. You know what? His voice was hoarse and tired, and I always thought, the problem between us is just time and work. He turned around. The pain in her eyes broke Clara's heart. But now I understand. Maybe the problem is that we're all no longer who we were. The words were like a sharp blade that it punctures the illusion they have maintained for so long. Clara was trying to explain, trying to say I was just lost for a moment. But the words turned to sobs. Daniel shakes his head, turning toward the study. The sound of the door slamming shut stung in the silence of the house. Like the cracks in their marriage. It can no longer be concealed. The door to the study closed behind. Clara stood her ground. Tears slipped silently. Her fingers twisted tightly around the fabric of her gown. A myriad of unspoken emotions swirled inside. She knew this night would change everything, but she didn't expect the change to come so suddenly. The air in the living room seemed to freeze, and only the ticking of the wall clock reminds of the passage of time. She walked slowly towards the study, and every step is like stepping on the tip of a knife. The light coming through the doorway cast a thin line of light across the floor of like her fragile hope at the moment. She knocked softly on the door. There was no response. After a few more minutes of waiting, she finally mustered up the courage to push the door open. Daniel was sitting at his desk, hands on your head. The table lamp on the table stretched his shadow long, and it looked lonely reflected on the wall. Hearing the door slam, he lifted his head slowly, and the pain in her eyes made Clara's heart ache. "We need to talk." Her voice trembled slightly, and "Let me explain." "Explain what?" Daniel interrupts her, voice low and restrained. "Explain why you were so intimate with a strange man on the terrace? Or explain why you look at him with more of a glow in your eyes than when you look at me." He stood up and, pacing to the window, "Turn your back on Clara." Clara felt a wave of dizziness that, holding onto the doorframe before standing still. "It's not what you think," she said eagerly. "James, he just understands my art. We were just talking." Daniel turns around violently. There was a flash of disbelief in his eyes. "Just chatting?" His voice trembling with suppressed anger. Do you think I can't see the way he looks at you? Or did you think I couldn't feel the change in you?" Clara lowers her head. Tears blurred his vision. Yes, she can't deny that. When James talks about her paintings, she felt understood and valued in a way she hadn't in a long time. It's such a good feeling, and yet so dangerous. "I recognize that," she whispered. "I was struck by his words. But that's only because it's been too long since I felt understood." The words came like a hammer blow that hits Daniel where he's most vulnerable. He dropped into a chair, and the anger on his face was replaced by a deep exhaustion. "So it's my fault?" He laughed bitterly. "Because I'm too busy. Because I don't know anything about art. So you can throw yourself into someone else's arms?" "No." Clara hurriedly approached trying to touch his hand, but he dodged it. "I didn't throw myself into anyone's arms. Daniel, the person I love is you. It's just that over the years, the distance between us is growing. Do you know the last time I shared one of my paintings with you? Do you remember the last time we actually talked?" The room fell into a silence. Daniel looked at the painting on the wall that Clara had given him. The look was complex. "I thought," he finally spoke, "I thought if I worked hard to give you a good life, it's just doing your duty as a husband." There was a hint of self-deprecation in his voice but it seems I was so wrong. Just then, Daniel's cell phone suddenly vibrated. He would have ignored it, but seeing the unfamiliar number on the screen, still picked up. Clara watched his expression go from puzzled to shocked as it finally settled into a strange kind of starkness. After hanging up, Daniel's gaze sharpened. "Did you know that James is a married man?" he asked coldly. Clara froze. The face instantly turned pale. "What? No, I don't know." She took a step back, and I felt a twinge in the sky. "His wife Molly is at the dinner tonight." Daniel continues. There was a terrible calmness in the voice that she sees everything. And she told me it's not the first time he's done it. Clara dropped onto the couch, and it felt like the world was falling apart. All that understanding and concern that James gave her. Suddenly it became sickening. She remembered the passion with which he talked about art, thinking of the tenderness with which he had touched her hand. All turned out to be an elaborate trap. "Molly wants to see me," Daniel said. "She said there's more we need to know." He stood up, looking condescendingly at Clara. "Before I went to see her, I wish you'd tell me the whole truth. This isn't the first time you've seen him, right?" Clara felt her throat tighten. Yes, before that terrace. She did meet James a couple times. In the corridors of the company. In front of the cafe. Those seemingly chance encounters. Now that I think about it, it all comes with careful calculation. I did see him a couple times before, she admitted, with a shudder. But nothing ever happens. Tonight is the first time. First time what? Daniel's voice is as cold as ice. Letting him near you for the first time? The first time you fell for his sweet talk? Or are you planning to betray our marriage for the first time? Clara closed her eyes in pain. I'm sorry, she murmured. I'm really sorry, but she knows. Apologizing can no longer make up for the damage she's done. That perfect illusion of a family has been shattered. All that's left is debris all over the place. The zap made everyone bleed. Daniel picks up his jacket, getting ready to go out. I'm going to see Molly, he said. When I get back, I want you to think this through. What makes you think it's worth destroying 10 years of our marriage for a stranger? Having said that, he strides out of the study and Clara was left alone to face the silence that filled the room. The cafe was empty late at night. Only a woman in the corner is waiting. Daniel recognized Molly right away. There was a hint of weariness in her graceful air of, like a rose shaking in the storm. Thank you for wanting to come, Molly whispered. Fingers rubbed uneasily over the coffee cup. I know it's sudden, but I think you have a right to know the truth. She pulled a folder out of her bag and pushed it in front of Daniel. These are James' war stories. There was a note of sarcasm in her voice that, it's a similar pattern every time, looking for marriages that seem perfect but are actually fractured, then burrow in like a snake. Daniel flipped the folder. Inside are various photos and records. He's seen pictures of other women, seeing the private text message logs. See the destroyed evidence. Every page is like a slap in the face. A reminder that his own marriage was just the latest target in this scumbag's game. Why are you telling me this now? Daniel closed the folder. Look Molly straight in the eye. She smiled bitterly and, because I've had enough. Enough of pretending not to see. Tired of being manipulated by him. Maybe this time it will stop another family from being destroyed by him. Daniel felt a wave of nausea. He remembered the confusion in Clara's eyes. Think about what she said about being understood. Now he understands. Those were James' elaborate traps. And Clara, his favorite person, is taking a step into the abyss. How are we going to stop him? Daniel asks. There was determination in his voice. Molly's eyes suddenly sharpened and, I have a plan, but it requires your cooperation. James is not only an emotional liar. It's also been done in some of the company's transactions. If we can gather evidence. When Daniel got home, it was already the wee hours of the morning. He found Clara curled up on the couch in the living room. Long ago, he cried himself out. Seeing him come through the door, she raised her bloodshot eyes and lips quivering as they tried to say something, but couldn't make a sound. Go to sleep, Daniel said wearily. We'll talk tomorrow. He knows. What awaits them will be an uphill battle. Not only do you have to deal with a crisis in your marriage, and to reveal the true nature of that man, but at the moment, all he felt was endless exhaustion and confusion about the future. Early morning sunlight poured through the curtains into the living room. Clara's still curled up on the couch. Last night's makeup was a spent mess. She heard the children getting up from upstairs and force yourself to sit up, trying to straighten messy hair. Daniel came out of the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee in his hand. Silently, he placed one of the cups in front of her. This calmness is harder to bear than anger. Clara took the coffee, carefully. Feel the temperature in the cup. Kids? She asked softly. I've got breakfast for them. Daniel replied flatly. I'll take them to school later. There was no warmth in his voice. It was like the invisible wall that stretched between them. When the kids leave, the house fell into a dead silence. Clara looks at Daniel, trying to say something, but I don't know where to start. In the end, it was Daniel who broke the silence. Molly told me a lot of things. His voice was low and tired and about James' true colors. Clara's fingers tightened around her coffee cup and the knuckles are white. Daniel continued, it's not the first time he's done this. He specializes in finding marriages that seem perfect but have cracks in them. Then, then burrow in like a parasite. Every word stabbed into Clara's heart like a knife. I, I don't know. Her voice was almost choked with a sob that, I really didn't know he was like that. Daniel gave a bitter smile and, of course, you wouldn't know. He always knows what to say, what to do. Like when he talks to you about art. He knows exactly where everyone's weaknesses are. Clara felt a twinge of heaven. She remembered the enthusiasm with which James had talked about her paintings, thinking of the understanding look in his eyes. It's all so false now. How many other people has he hurt? She asked with a shudder. Daniel pulls the folder Molly gave him out of his briefcase. Put it on the coffee table. Are you sure you want to see it? He asked. Clara nods. With a trembling hand, he flipped open the folder. Every page is like a blow to the head. It was suffocating her. Photo, SMS records, private conversations. All the evidence points to one horrible truth. She's just one of James' elaborate prey. Molly wants to expose him, Daniel said. Not just his extramarital affairs, and some of his infractions in the company. He paused for a moment. She needs our help. Clara looks up. Tears blurred his vision. What do I have to do? She asked. There was determination in his voice. This was the first time she'd ever seen a chance to be able to make amends for a mistake, even though she knows it won't save her marriage. Daniel looked at her with some surprise. You'd like to help? Clara wipes away her tears, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, I owe you this. And I can't let him keep hurting other people. Just then, Daniel's cell phone rings. It's a message from Molly. Ask them to meet and talk about it in detail. Clara looks hesitantly at Daniel. Not sure if I should participate. Daniel thought for a moment. Said, you come too. Maybe you know something we don't. They meet at a secluded cafe. Molly visibly stiffened when she saw Clara but normality was soon restored. Thank you for wanting to come, she said. Especially you. Clara, I know this is hard for you. Clara keeps her head down, feeling the kindness from the woman across the street. It made her feel even more guilty. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm really sorry. Molly smiled bitterly and, no need to apologize. We are all victims. Important. We need to stop him from continuing to hurt others. Molly pulls out a laptop, began to detail her plans. James had his hand in several important projects for the company, she explained. But I've never had conclusive evidence. I need your help to gather this evidence. Daniel frowned at the file on his computer screen. These are classified documents, he said. How are we going to reach out? Just then, Clara spoke up suddenly. Maybe I know where I can find some evidence. Both men looked at her in surprise. Clara took a deep breath and continued. That day on the terrace, James didn't just talk about art. He mentioned a program that said it was his masterpiece. At the time, I thought he was just showing off. But now that I think about it, her words caught Molly's eye. Is that Plan B? Clara nodded. He said the program put him on solid footing with the company. But there was a strange look on his face when he said it. It's like a hint of something. Molly quickly typed something on the computer. Plan B is one of the biggest projects that James has been responsible for, she explained. I've always suspected there was something wrong with it, but no evidence was ever found. Clara, do you remember exactly what he said? Clara closed her eyes and, trying to remember the details of the moment, he mentioned an offshore account. Say it's insurance. Also said, and that if anyone wants to look into the program, just go through this account first. Daniel and Molly exchanged a look. That's the clue we need, Molly said. If this offshore account could be traced, it would prove his violation. She turns to Daniel. You're from the finance department. Is there a way to find out that information? Daniel pondered. A direct investigation would have spooked us. But if we can find the original file for the project, something occurred to him. Wait, there's a program review meeting next week that all the files will be pulled. That's our chance, Molly said. But we must proceed with caution. James is no pushover. If he finds out we're investigating him, she didn't finish. But everyone understands the seriousness of the consequences. Clara hesitated for a moment, then say, maybe I can distract him. Daniel immediately looked at her warily. No, it's too dangerous. But Clara insisted. He would trust me. And it's the last thing I can do. The meeting continued late into the night. When they left the cafe, everyone carries their own heart in their heart. Clara looked at Daniel's backhand. A pang of heartache was felt. She knows. Whatever the outcome of this operation, none of the rifts between her and Daniel can be fully repaired. But at least, she could try to make up for some of the faults. On the way home, Daniel didn't say a word. Until, as they stood in front of the house, he just opened his mouth. Promise me something. Clara looked up at him. Until this is over, don't see him alone again. I can't. I can't take much more. There was a vulnerability in his voice that Clara had never heard before. Clara nods. Tears welled up in his eyes again. She looked at the man she had hurt so deeply and, how I wish I could turn back time. Back to that time when they still trusted each other. But she knows. It's impossible. What she can do now, it's making sure that the person who hurt them pays. That night, Clara was sitting alone in the drawing room. Look at your own paintings on the wall. Each one records a moment in her life. Some of these were still created prior to meeting James. She took down a painting that, seriously scrutinizing, it was the last time she painted Daniel's portrait. There wasn't so much separation between them back then. She gently stroked Daniel's silhouette in the painting, apologizing silently in my mind, and vowed to lead all wrongs to right. The moonlight in the drawing room. Clara put down that portrait of Daniel. Turn and look out the window at the city lights. 1 week later, the company will hold an annual program review meeting. This meeting, which she once found boring, and now it's become a critical moment for them to reveal the truth. Her cell phone screen lit up and it's a message from Molly, confirming the last details. During the week, Daniel was working at the office, as usual, but everyone could feel an unusual tension in the air. James seems to have sensed something, too. He started frequenting the finance department, prying for information for all sorts of reasons. But every time I run into Daniel, he's all about that uncomfortable grin that. It was as if everything was under his control. On the morning of the jury meeting, the sky is overcast, as if foreshadowing the coming storm. Clara is standing in front of the closet. It took a long time of hesitation to choose a dark-colored suit. She knew she had to be present today, not as Daniel's wife, rather, as a witness. Molly has arranged everything, just waiting for the final moment. The conference room was packed. James is sitting in the front row. The suit is straight, exudes confidence as always. He turned his head when he saw Clara walk in. There was a flash of surprise in his eyes but quickly regained his composure. Daniel, sitting on the other side, is flipping through the papers in his hand. Didn't even look at James. Molly was the last one in. She walked gracefully to the podium and began routine project debriefing. When she said Plan B, there was a subtle change in James' expression. It's one of the most successful programs we've had as a company. Molly's voice was clear and firm, but today, I'd say it's more than just its success. The projector lights up and the screen displayed a series of densely packed data. These are the actual financial records of Plan B, Molly continued, and a secret account hidden behind it. Whispers began to circulate in the conference room. James' face turned pale but he quickly stood up and interrupted. These allegations are baseless. Yes? Molly calmly pressed the remote control and the new file appears on the screen. This is evidence of your personal investments with company funds. It's a record of the transfer of the money you bribed your partner with. And she paused for a moment. This is the complete chain of evidence that you used your position to manipulate multiple projects. James' composure finally cracks. He looked around the room and, finding everyone looking at him with shock and disdain, when his eyes fell on Clara, and she looked away from me, unwilling to meet his eyes. Enough. He suddenly yelled. You have no right to do this. These are company secrets. You are in violation. Turning to the executives present, he, trying to justify himself. But Daniel stood up at this point. His voice was calm, though, yet it carries unquestionable power. As head of the finance department, it's my responsibility to show people these issues. He opened his folder of, here is the complete audit report. Shows details of all violations. Mr. James Wilson not only misappropriated public funds, there are also attempts to cover up the truth through various means. James' face completely changed shape. He rushed to the podium and seemed to want to take away the papers, but the security guard stopped him in time. The executives in the room were talking. Someone has already started calling the legal department to notify them. Molly is standing at the podium, calmly watching it all. One more thing, she said. There was a certain relief in the voice that James Wilson not only cheated the company at work, it's also a repeat offender in his personal life. She showed the next set of slides. The above is what James has been doing for the last few years. The women he's hurt, the families he destroyed. Clara is in the corner with her head down. Tears slipped silently. Things went beyond James's control. When the police came into the conference room, he finally broke down. You don't understand, he shouted, hysterically. I'm doing this all for the company. But no one believed him. At the time he was taken, an eerie silence fell over the entire conference room. Following the conclusion of the meeting, Clara walks alone in the corridors of the office. She heard footsteps coming from behind her and turned to see Molly standing there. The two women looked at each other for a long time and eventually Molly stepped forward and gently embraced her. It's over, Molly whispered. It's all over. That night, Clara packs up and moves out of her and Daniel's home. It was a decision they made together. Even though the truth has come out, even though she helped expose James' crimes. But some injuries cannot be easily repaired. Daniel is standing in the doorway. Watch her put the last box in the car. Take care of yourself, he said. There was an indescribable weariness and relief in his voice. Clara nods. Tears blurred his vision. Kids, she choked. We'll set it up, Daniel said. They need time. We all need it. 1 month later, Clara rents a small apartment on the other side of town. The walls are covered with her new paintings. These paintings aren't as bright as they once were, but with a deeper connotation. She started taking commissions from galleries. Rediscover the passion to create. Every weekend, she meets the kids all the time. It was tough at first, though, but Lucas and Helena grew to understand their parents' decision. Molly opted for a more radical approach. Not only is she divorced, and started a foundation, help women who are hurting in their marriages. Sometimes, Clara will be volunteering at her foundation. Use your own experience to warn others. Daniel sold the house full of memories, moved into a modern apartment. He started working out, learning to cook, trying to redefine my life. Sometimes, when he was organizing his old stuff, Clara's paintings will be found at the bottom of the box. Those paintings no longer cause him pain. Rather, it was a reminder of that important but closed chapter in his life. One Sunday, 6 months later, Daniel meets Molly at the park. She's on her morning run. There was a healthy glow on his face. They talked for a long time on the bench, talking about how each has changed and grown as the sunlight poured through the leaves on them. Both men sensed a new possibility. When Clara learned the news later, unexpectedly calm, she stood in the drawing room and, looking at one of the latest completed paintings. The painting is no longer in the bright colors of the past. Instead, a deep brushstroke depicting an open window that, outside the window was a starry sky. That was her epiphany through it all. Sometimes, the end of a relationship, and the beginning of another story. Life always goes on in unexpected ways. James ended up in jail for embezzlement and fraud. Daniel and Molly have started a new relationship, but they're all very careful. Cherish the hard-won happiness. Clara specializes in art. Her paintings began to be exhibited in galleries. It has received unexpected favorable reviews. Maybe that's the truth of life. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage. There are no unhealable wounds either. The important thing is that after weathering the storm, still able to maintain faith in life. Expectations of love. As is the subject of Clara's latest painting, after the break, there is always a new light. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.